everybody's all right. Can I read that person today?
All right, good evening, everyone. It is 5:31, and I will call this policy meeting to order. Ms. Shope, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Megan Miller is not able to join us this evening. Greg Schneider
Present.
and Amy Levy.
Here. All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda removing item 1D? The minutes from our March 6th meeting are not attached, so we will handle those at our May meeting.
So moved.
All right, I will provide a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, we will jump right in. Policy 440.1, student of legal age. Board Member Schneider, any questions or edits?
No questions, no edits.
Okay. Mine, I just have one question. I'm not clear why number 2 and 3 are being deleted. What's the rationale behind that? And for those playing along at home that may not have the policy in front of you, number 2, we are talking about students of legal age. Number 2 is sign absence excuses and permission slips for himself, herself, and if we could add their self there, if it stays. And then number 3, discontinue or forego school parent notification procedures.
I think the reasoning behind that was those are 2 of very many things they can do to exercise their rights. And so it was like, if we want to include 2, should we include the exhaustive list, or should we just say they are allowed to exercise their now legal rights and leave that broad?
No. I completely hear your point. I would not be opposed to saying including but not limited to, because I think those are 2 big ones. Board Member Schneider, do you have an opinion on that?
I am okay with leaving it in.
Okay. Dr. Garrison, does that work for you?
I see what Missy is saying, but it doesn't really matter for me.
You okay? All right. So Ms. Shope will keep 2 and 3 and rename those 1 and 2, and then himself, herself, their self. And then we'll just add a clause. Including but not limited. Yes, thank you. All right, Ms. Shope, do I need to repeat anything? You got it? Perfect, thank you so much. All right, is there a motion to approve policy 440.1 to move forward to the full board for a first reading?
So moved.
Second, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, perfect, that motion passes unanimously. That brings us to policy 441, students' rights and free speech. Board Member Schneider, do you have any questions or edits?
No questions, no edits.
Okay, I just have a couple tweaks just to make it a little more user-friendly to read. I'm looking at the first 3 lines. Is anyone opposed to changing that to 2 sentences? So the last sentence we wouldn't change, and the first 3 lines, if we could adjust that to say, every student has a right to an education in an environment that allows them to identify and pursue personal academic interest. Everybody good? All right, and then we would keep that second sentence as it's listed. And then I just want to go down to the last sentence and just tweak it a little bit. I'll start at the beginning just for continuity. The exercise of this right may not interfere with the rights of others. My bad. A student's right to freedom of expression may not be utilized to present material which, question, tends to be obscene. Is there a reason we're not putting is obscene? Okay, is anyone opposed to us saying to is obscene? I didn't know if there was a legal reason with that wording.
No.
No, all right. Okay. So if we could switch that, again, so that last sentence would read, a student's right to freedom of expression may not be utilized to present materials which are obscene, or material which is obscene or slanderous, defames character, is threatening to others, and then I'd like to switch, violates school policies or regulations, or advocates a violation of federal, state, or local laws, because it doesn't have to be all three of them. Any one of them would not be okay. Is anyone opposed to that? And if no, Ms. Shope, let me know if you need me to repeat anything.
I need you to repeat the balance.
No problem. All right, that last sentence, a student's right to freedom of expression may not be utilized to present material which is obscene or slanderous, defames character, is threatening to others, violates school policies or regulations, or advocates a violation of federal, state, or local laws. Everyone good? No? All right, no, here we go. That's what we're here for.
Violate school policy. Oh, sorry.
Or advocates a violation of federal, state, or local law. So we're just changing that and to or. You don't need the trifecta. Any one of those would be bad. All right, everybody good? All right, is there a motion to approve policy 441 as amended to move on to the full board for a first reading?
So moved.
Second, any further discussion?
Ms. Shope has a question.
Yes.
You made changes at the very beginning also, correct?
Yep, I did. Let me reread that. So the first 3 lines are going to be condensed with the following sentence, which I'll read in just a second. And then that last sentence is of the first paragraph is unchanged. So the first paragraph is just going to be 2 sentences. Here we go with the first one. Every student has a right to an education in an environment that allows them to identify and pursue personal academic interest. No problem at all. All right, any other discussion on policy 441? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion, not potion, passes unanimously. That brings us to policy 442, student involvement in decision-making. All right, this was a fun one. Board Member Schneider, any questions or edits?
I have no questions or edits.
All right, I have a couple. Okay, so starting at that second paragraph, a Beloit Memorial High School BMHS student shall be elected. That hurt my heart. What about our kiddos at BLA? And what about our kiddos that are juniors that are taking advantage of online services through the school district? Is there a reason we're not opening that up for them to apply?
It should say BLA as well. I'm not sure about the online student piece.
So can we adjust that? Because I think the spirit is any rising senior.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay,
I feel like
and that
would be
covers
more inclusive,
all
'cause then
locations.
you're also thinking of all of the programs that,
Okay, so a rising senior, and does everybody know what rising senior means? All right. So a rising senior shall be elected in May of each school year. Okay, so we're fine with that. The other thing that broke my heart is we cannot take away students' ability to vote. Like, I'm very uncomfortable with a panel selecting who the student representative is going to be. So let's just roll through the second paragraph. A rising senior shall be elected in May each school year to serve as a student representative on the board, because they're not representing the board, so on the board. Interested junior students who will be seniors in the fall will fill out an application for consideration. And then, because the clause of 2 students may be allowed to run as a team is, I don't really get that, and I'm fine with that being removed. But I think that's what influenced the next sentence of the BMHS principal will select 3 finalists. So, please share with me the rationale behind having, or changing it to have a panel select instead of student body selecting.
I would have to defer to, this was Mrs. Pell's, and
Right. Emily this is how I think it was done in the past, so I didn't,
this was not
I
something.
wouldn't.
Well, it hasn't, because that's in green, so that's new. And what it had been is what's stricken, because that's up for removal. So what it did say is the BMHS junior, which theoretically we could just say the junior class students shall all have the opportunity to vote for the student board member representative. I think that's the way it should be. Now, it might get a little tricky if it's a student applying from BLA or homebound or something else. So I just want to acknowledge that there is going to be a little more effort. It may be people will do a video speech submission, and it's put on the website or in whatever Classroom, Google, and people have a certain amount of time to view it and to cast their ballot. So I get it may take a little extra work, but I think it's worth it to be inclusive of all of our rising seniors, that they have the opportunity. Does anyone from the administration object to keeping it the way it was and just changing the BMHS junior to all juniors? Or if we want to be consistent, all rising seniors shall have the opportunity to vote for the student board member representative. What are our thoughts?
I like the all rising seniors piece.
Okay.
But I need to go back and ask Mrs. Pills about,
Do you want us to put a pin in this?
I want to go back and ask Mrs. Pills about the switch in the junior class piece. I thought this was the way, I thought they had always had a panel. So that's on me, that's my mistake, so.
Hey, we are all human. All right, so let's go ahead and finish our proposed edits, and then we'll put a pin in this until our next meeting, and that'll give you time to confer with Ms. Peltz. All right. So at the beginning of the paragraph, Ms. Shope, we're going to use the language rising senior. We are going to forego. So we will, okay, I don't want to, I feel like I'm about to confuse you because I'm confusing myself. Let me just read through it. I think that's the easiest way. So a rising senior shall be elected in May of each school year to serve as a student representative on the board. Interested rising seniors will fill out an application for consideration. And see, we may need to change that. We'll fill out an application and commit and submit a video or complete a video submission.
Correct, because we have to.
Okay, so this is just language that we're working at. So how about interested rising seniors will fill out an application and complete a video submission for consideration. We good, Ms. Shope?
You said we'll fill out,
Yep. Interested rising seniors will fill out an application and complete a video submission for consideration. Okay, and then we will pick back up with rising seniors shall all have the opportunity to vote for the student board member representative. And then the selected student shall serve a term from September to May. The student representative shall receive notice of and be permitted to attend and participate in any board or committee meeting except during closed session. The student representative shall not, however, be permitted to vote or make motions.
So why are we doing the video submission piece?
Because if I'm a BLA student, people at Beloit Memorial might not be as familiar with me. And so I'm going to date myself. The way we used to do is you would give a speech if you wanted to run for class office. That was your time to connect with your constituents. But if I'm at BLA or homebound or online, there's not an easy way for me to communicate. So if everybody did a 3-minute max video submission, and then that was uploaded into Blackboard or Google Classroom, and you gave people like a window, like a week window, it's like it's voting week. And you can review the submission and you can cast your ballot. That just kind of, in my mind, and I'm totally open to suggestions, makes it as fair as possible for any rising senior that wants to apply.
I would just say or complete a video submission for.
Well, and there may be, and I don't know what the application asks for. So maybe we just do a video submission and just make sure in the guidelines, anything that would be captured in the application, they include in the video submission. But some of that might be tedious. Like if I'm gonna get open campus lunch, if that's my platform or whatever, I don't want students to be constricted with, I don't know what's in the application, but all of the items that are in the application. So it may be best to keep them separate. But after you confer with Ms. Peltz, if you find that is not the case, please let us know and we can make the adjustment.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Pause.
Any other edits, questions? Okay, so we're gonna put a pin in 442 and come back to that at our next meeting. All right, that brings us to, usually we roll the rule over, but the request from the administration is to retire 445 Rule 1, so we will just look at the content. Does anyone object to that? All right, so we'll just look at the content of 445, student interviews. Board Member Schneider, any questions or edits?
No questions, no edits.
Okay. In the first portion of the new material in green, the Board of Education encourages school administrators. I would be more comfortable with expects. Encouraged just seems more optional to me, but that is the expectation that school administration and district staff will work in close cooperation with law enforcement, social services, and they have the list there. And then if we go down to the third paragraph, this makes me uncomfortable. And I want us to have a conversation about it. A reasonable effort will be made and documented to contact the parent or guardian of a minor student in advance of the interview. School personnel shall not notify parents. I completely get that. If the issue is with the parent potentially harming the student, it makes sense to not tell the parent the student is being interviewed. But in the absence of a situation like that, I'm very uncomfortable with the prospect that my child could be interviewed and I may not be notified in advance of that happening. Please talk me through that statement.
Sometimes when you're thinking about like interviews and certain situations that happens with students, I think this is more so, especially when you're thinking about law enforcement, sometimes we have information from them saying that we need to talk to X.
Oh, no, what were you saying about the mic?
Oh,
It's on.
It's on.
Yep.
Sorry, I was one talking into it. And sometimes like law enforcement will say to us, hey, we need to talk to this kid based off of some information that we've got that they have that we don't have.
Right.
So that reasonable space there, as I read it, was we're going to make every attempt to contact the parent regardless, but we need to keep that second sentence in mind about the first sentence. That's kind of how.
Well, the second sentence I see is totally separate, because that's if a parent is harming a child and that's the reason for the interview, then absolutely you would notify, like, hey, your child is about to tell us how you are abusing or neglecting them. That makes absolute sense. I'm in full support of that. But I don't want anyone questioning my child without my permission. The only caveat that I could see that being reasonable is if someone's life was in danger and you believe my child may have information to help save someone's life.
And again, that's the information that sometimes law enforcement will share with us in these specific situations.
So can law enforcement interview a student without a parent's consent? Yes. Okay, help me. I'm ignorant. Like, how? absent a life-threatening situation, how does that work?
I mean, I think they have to have reasonable suspicion to interview a student. So I'm looking at this, I don't know if this is okay to bring in Rule 1 now, under A1, letter C.
Yep.
That's where it refers to make a reasonable attempt.
Okay, so I'm going to read that. Thank you for pointing us
Yep.
to that. If the building principal is unable to reach a parent/legal guardian by telephone as required above, see, this says it's required. The principal shall immediately cause to be mailed to a parent/legal guardian if a minor student a copy of the completed command to aid a law enforcement officer form.
Yeah, and in letter A, it says whether or not the principal reaches the parent or legal guardian by phone, the minor student shall be produced promptly after the telephone call is attempted or made.
Okay, and also sticking with A,
Yep.
when the form is completed, the principal shall endeavor by phone. Okay, so the form,
Which we haven't used since 2002.
okay, but I think the context of what's in the form may be helpful in how we write the language. So when the form is completed, the principal shall endeavor by telephone immediately to notify the parent/legal guardian of the student, advising the person of the command by reading it to the person. Whether or not the principal reaches the parent/legal guardian by telephone, the minor student shall be produced promptly after telephone call is attempted or made. Because my instruction to my child is unless somebody's life is threatening, don't say anything to anyone. So what are the consequences for not cooperating?
Well, every situation is different. I always say that, like, we wouldn't, let's say a kid doesn't want to talk, we can't make them talk, you know what I mean? And so,
So
Yeah,
I
okay.
would, thank you. I would feel more comfortable with this policy if we were a bit more clear about reasonable, where is it?
third paragraph.
Hold on. No, not the reasonable effort, but like the reason for questioning the student in the absence of parental consent. I want to be very clear legally, like, if someone's life is in danger, you absolutely tell whoever, whatever they need to know. But if it's, do you know if Johnny was smoking pot, like, close your mouth and wait until they contact me and we will handle, your parent will handle this. So I don't have language ready today for but one, I want to contact legal so we understand what we are requesting of students and what student and parents' rights are in these situations. And when students can be questioned without parental consent and what those parameters are. I think it would be helpful if we outline that better in the policy so everyone knew what the expectation is, and students have the right to close their mouth until their parent is reached without repercussion. I just want us to be mindful of everyone's rights and to clearly explain that.
I think that's a great idea. We can try to hone in on some of that. I think we can start with just speaking with our SROs.
I was just,
Yeah, and
Yeah, because I consulted with police department on this.
Correct,
So that would be perfect.
we can add some more context to the thought.
And I want to get an attorney's opinion about student and parents' rights. And when is it a non-negotiable for you to tell law enforcement or the other entities listed everything you know? And when you have the option to say, I'm not comfortable with answering any questions. So yes, absolutely utilize the SROs, but I want a legal, Board Member Schneider, how do you feel about that?
I think we need to also make sure we have a legal opinion on that. I also know that Child Protective Services has the right to interview a child, even if it's not, even if it's in regards to another family.
Oh, so that was
So they
really
can't,
loud.
yeah, right. And as such.
Without parental consent?
That's the next sentence in that paragraph.
Right,
yeah.
so they would attempt to do that, but they can also then if there's a threat in another family, they can isolate that individual student until permission is given.
See, this is making me very uncomfortable. And like my common sense is telling me if someone's life is in danger, all of these things make sense. But in the absence of that, none of these things make sense. And yeah, go ahead.
So I understand from a life-threatening perspective, but there could also be some sexual stuff. There could also be some, violent stuff. There could also be some weapon stuff. I mean, there's other things that
Yeah.
could pop up into a we need to talk to you now type of space.
And
I
to-
agree with you.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I agree with you that we can add more levels to the conversation to like lay it out some more. I know you asked for attorney opinion, but the law, they have to follow the law that's based off of the law. So wouldn't they?
So here, let me be very transparent. Like, shout out to all the SROs. They are wonderful. They are not lawyers. And I know they are tasked with following the law, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. The people who should be intimately familiar with school law. You know what I mean? I want it directly from the source. I don't want it once removed.
Miss, you said we cleared this part right here with the police department or SROs, which one?
Sergeant Linder, yeah.
Okay.
Not an SRO, the sergeant.
Yeah, I want to hear from an attorney. And again, to make sure we are protecting student and parent rights and we are being responsive to human safety. So I want to know what that line is. Any other questions, comments, potential edits for policy 445? All right, if no, we're going to put a pin in that one and also bring it back. And I think we should hold off on retiring 445 Rule 1, just because we may need to pull something from there and include in the policy. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, that brings us to policy 446, and the recommendation from the administration is to retire policy 446.1. So if we're able to handle 446, we'll just do both of those actions together. All right, with that being said, Board Member Schneider, we will start with policy 446. Any questions or edits?
No questions, no edits.
All right, perfect. Okay, I have a couple. In 446, student searches. Okay, let's start at the first portion that is not stricken, and I'll read the full sentence. It says, the school district of Beloit acknowledges that a student may have contraband or evidence of a violation of a law, board policy, the student code of conduct, or a school rule. So my first question is there a school rule that is not covered under law, board policy, or the code of conduct?
Probably not.
Okay. Are we okay with, just for efficiency's sake, are we okay with eliminating school rule and just leaving it with contraband or evidence of violation of a law, board policy, or the student code of conduct? Are we all good?
I am.
All right. And then, Ms. Shope, if you could just kind of put a pin in that phrasing, because we kind of vacillate throughout the policy, and I want to be consistent with that law, board policy, or student code of conduct. So if you could just put a pin in that, because we're going to use it again. And then if we go down, same paragraph, the start of the new information, school officials may search students' person. I just want to be consistent with our language. Our school officials, and sometimes it's like school officials and staff, so I'm assuming, but I want to make sure that school officials are school administrators. Okay, can we just say school administrators to be consistent?
Yep.
All right, so school administrators may search students' person or personal belongings. And policy does a nice job of laying out, which we'll get to, like devices, bags, lockers, et cetera, any space that is designated to a student. So for example, if you're in chemistry class and that's your assigned drawer, that can be searched, but not common spaces and attributed to you. But my question is, what does it mean to search a person? Does that mean their pockets? Because how else are we searching people?
So if you go down A1, right underneath, it defines what that means.
Okay, so searches of person or personal possession. All right, let's read through that. School officials, which will be school administrators,
Yep, thank
may search a student's person or personal effects. See, it's very general. It doesn't this is absurd, but if we're not clear, does that mean someone can look down my shirt or to ask me to pull up my pant leg, or like what does that mean to search a person?
Wow.
I liken it to like a. Now this is just me and you talking on this. I liken
Well,
it
it's
to
in the World Wide Web.
Correct, because we put it on. So I liken it to like a regular search where, they can do the pat down, you know what I mean? And that requires touching the person.
Okay, where are people being patted? Are we being patted in breast area, backside? Because people, if
we
you're wearing
would-
jeans, you got pockets on your bottom.
We would definitely stay away from, touching personal space, personal.
I think
body
every
parts.
part of my body I consider a personal space. So, and I'm not.
Private space, I should say then. So what your arm is, I'm just asking.
Okay, so
Because if we're gonna go there, we got to think about. Are we gonna put it in the policy?
I just want to understand if a student's person is searched, what areas are on the table and what areas are off limits.
I can tell you from an administrative perspective.
Yep.
If we think we need to touch a person, we're calling the SROs in. We're gonna say.
Well, I want to know where the SRO is touching me. Like,
Well,
is it
exactly.
just arms, leg? Is it thighs? Is it pockets?
So they typically do like they call it rub down the arms.
Okay.
They typically do sometimes they'll say, if you got on pants, they'll say, look up your pants leg, so we don't have to touch you there.
Yep.
They'll say, look up your pants leg. Sometimes they do, I know it sounds crazy, they'll say, if you think you got something in your shoes, pop off your shoes. And
Totally fine with that.
Knock down your shoes so we ain't got to touch your feet.
Empty your pocket.
Empty your pockets. If you got on a jacket, we'll say lift up your jacket, or take it inside out so we can see if there's nothing in there. So if we have to think about having to touch a person, typically we would call the SROs if we think they're hiding something, which we don't go that far.
No.
Never
I've
have
never
to go that far.
seen-
Correct.
Okay, so it sounds like, and I would like to get this language confirmed with what actually happens, that search of a person may include the touching of your arms, and if it's lower legs, you may be asked to remove your outer garments, like shoes and jackets. But no one's looking down your clothes, or I'm not saying anybody would or is.
sure,
I want,
Sure, I get it.
and part of policy is to communicate safeguards and what we are doing. You know what I mean? It's right. If they will ask the student to empty the pockets, and that's pretty empty because you can see a pocket coming out, knowing that there's nothing else there. And I'm not saying we need to get in the weeds, but like a sentence or two that describes what that means would make me more comfortable as a parent and a citizen than just somebody's going to search your person. So if we could put a pin, Ms. Shope, could you give us a running list? If we could put a pin on, it doesn't have to be extensive, please don't make it extensive, but a general description of what searching a person entails. And I think A1 is the perfect place to put it. All right, what else do I have? In A, that third line from the bottom, it talks about school rules. So let me go to the beginning of that sentence. A student or the student's possessions may be searched when a school official, so we would change that to school administrator, has reasonable suspicion that the search will turn up evidence that the particular student has violated or is violating can we put that cadence that we agreed to at the beginning? A law, where is it?
Law, a board policy, or the student code of conduct.
That part. Just so we're consistent. And then the scope, do you need me to repeat anything, Ms. Shope? No. Okay, perfect, thank you. And then the last sentence of section A, the scope of the search and the methods used to conduct the search must be reasonably related to the objectives of the search and not excessively intrusive in light of the age and sex of the student and the nature of the infraction. I don't know what that means.
So, and I was kind of thinking about this when Dr. Garrison was explaining the search of the person. Like, if somebody says, I saw Johnny put a vape in his pocket.
Yep.
You should not be searching, an entire person. You should say empty your pockets. You should not say, I need you to dump your backpack. Do you see what I'm
Okay.
saying?
That
The
makes
search
sense.
should fit what the suspicion is.
Working from it.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I think there's probably a better way for us to phrase that last sentence.
If I think you have, while you think about it, if I think a student may have, and I was in high school, may have, let's just say, some paraphernalia that's inappropriate. Let's just say a lighter.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's say a lighter. Okay, I saw the student may have put a lighter in his back pocket.
Yep.
Now, I walk up to him, and I should not have to ask him to empty his bag, because I thought I saw
Right.
you put it in your back pocket. Now, I may say empty your front and your back pockets,
Right.
right? I may say that. And I might say sometimes, kids get a little creative, and they stick it in their little belt line,
Yeah.
all right? And I say, hey, you know what? Pop off your belt, too, just to, just see if you ain't tucking it nowhere.
So how about
So it's
this?
typically what you are suspected of, where the
Yeah, it's not a
paraphernalia may
gotcha.
be.
Can we just put a one, okay, so we can leave the language as is, but add a one sentence kind of explainer. For example, if a student is expected of putting contraband in his, her, their pocket, the student may be asked to empty all pockets, but not all personal possessions. Is that in line of what should happen?
Now, if they got a book bag with them, and I saw them put them in their pocket, I might say, you know what, man, I need to check your book bag, too.
Well, see, Dr. Garrison, that goes against what this says.
If, let's say, I know he had the lighter,
Okay.
and a lighter comes. Let's say there is a lighter in his pocket. I may think I might need to check your book bag now.
And I'm not opposed to that. It just seems like that is not in line with this. The point of this is to limit the scope, not to expand it. But I'm,
Oh, I'm sorry. Here's
Yep.
from a high school, middle school, and I've done elementary as well. If I thought I saw something, let's say I come there and the kid has it. Okay, now I have the reasonable suspicion that you might have something else. You might have an additional lighter in your book bag or in your purse. So now I might say, you know what? Thank you for showing that you got a lighter here. Do you have any other lighters? They may say no. They may say no, right? And then as an
I don't want to talk
administrator-
about it.
Correct. They may say I don't want to talk about it. I might say, we know I also need to check your book bag or your purse,
Okay, so
and then I'm done after that.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it also goes back to like, okay, you have a lighter. It'd be different if Greg told me Missy had a knife in her bag, and we didn't find one in her bag. There's reasonable reason, because that's more threatening than a lighter. So your search might be a little bit more thorough.
Because of the
I
threat.
didn't find it in your backpack. I want you to show me in your belt. I want you to empty your pocket.
And I want
But
to
a
see your
light-
locker.
But a lighter, like, okay, we didn't find it in your pockets. It was reported. If you've got it, get rid of it.
How about this? I think I might have a solution. Okay. The scope of the search and the methods used to conduct the search must be reasonably related to the object in question and the threat level associated with the object.
Love it.
Is that okay?
Threat level, I'm sorry.
Let's see, because I was freestyling there. All right, so the scope of the search and the methods used to conduct the search must be reasonably related to the object in question and the threat level associated with the object. Okay, I think that speaks to the spirit, and then we would end it there unless there's reason to add the rest of the part, because I'm not sure, like the age maybe, but the sex of what does the sex of the student have to do with where you're searching for the knife or the lighter?
I think we also try to respect the person, if it was a male, if it was a female, or let's just say other. I don't mind the sex being there because I think we should just keep our minds solely focused on making sure that we don't cross any boundaries.
But you know where I think it would be a good place to put that is in A1, when we're talking about what it means to search a person. If it is differentiated due to sex, I think if we go in that direction, I think that's the place to put it. Are we comfortable with ending section A with the sentence I just read?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't see
Okay. And then in 1, I don't know if we covered this or not, but the second to the last line says school official. If we could change that to school administrator, just to be consistent with language. And then in 2, that last line on that page, we actually have a question. The search must be conducted with at least one school official, which would be
Where you at?
school.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. I'm at the very last line of that page. So the last sentence under 2. The search must be conducted with at least one school official. So to be consistent, that'll be switched to at least one school administrator and one other staff member present. Is that how that typically happens? You have an administrator and another staff member? Okay. And then if we go to 3, searches of electronic devices. Okay, so I think it's a different category if it's a district-owned device. Like that, no questions. If you need to go to IT and change the password to get access to whatever, I think that's very clear. This is not your device. This is a district device. We can search it at any time. What gets more gray for me is, let's say, a student's phone. So a student's wireless communication or other electronic device and its contents, including but not limited to text message, the digital photos, text messages and digital photos may be searched whenever a school administrator, we'll change that official to administrator, has reason to believe the search will provide evidence that the student has violated or is violating, and then we'll go back to that law, board policy, or student code of conduct. I'm not as comfortable with that. And what happens, so let's just use my kid, for example. If my kid has his phone and you have reason to search the phone, but my kid says, no, I'm not giving you my password.
That happens.
What happens then?
No, we can't force.
Yeah.
We can't force the student to give me your password.
So why would we have something in policy that we can't enforce? Now, you can take the student's phone and saying this is a distraction, you or your parent or whatever the protocol is can pick it up at the end of the day. But I'm uncomfortable with having things in policy that we don't have the ability to enforce.
Well, we would hope that we would also get parent, how can I say it? We would hope that we get parent cooperation as well, especially in these types of situations.
But then it becomes uneven for all students. Because if my child says, I'm not giving you the password, and I back up my child, I'm not saying that would happen in the Levy household, depends on the situation, then I have a different set of rules than if you ask Mary for her password and she gives it to you.
That may happen, but the majority of the time, people tend to cooperate, especially when we have reasonable knowledge. Because as school officials, I would hope that we were one of the most trusted people to get a chance to work with.
Absolutely.
And so we're not just targeting kids to target them because we.
You have other things to do.
Exactly. So
I got it.
Our goal is to make sure that we're all safe, and that we're all operating in an aspect of a purple night. Just, the quintessential purple night. So for me, it's never I'm targeting. It's more of, hey, we believe X, Y, and Z is happening. Can we see your phone? Typically, sometimes students be like, no, because they know they got something. That give me even more reason to think you got something.
Yeah,
So,
or
no,
no on principle. Like I could,
Yeah,
look,
or no on
one of my
principle.
2 children, I could,
Yeah.
no, on principle.
I get it. And so when those situations happen, typically administration, then we go into our next mode, which is let's press a little bit more, meaning that, okay, well, why don't you want to show me that?
I don't want to talk about it. So
Awesome.
here is my concern.
So then I go to the parent. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Then
No, you're fine.
Then I say, that's fine. I'm not going to fight you over your phone. But for safekeeping, we're going to take the phone. We're going to contact the parent. 'Cause we
Yep.
can't get into it anyway. And so now we have your phone, we contact the parent, we tell them what's going on. Most of the time, we do get parent cooperation, most of the time. If not majority of the time. We get parent cooperation because most of the time the parent don't want the kid to get into any additional issues or trouble or something like that. And we kind of work it from there. Go ahead, Ms. Simpson.
Can we change it to, now I lost my place. Request to search a student's a request may be made to search a student's wireless communication, blah, blah, blah. And then,
If the student refuses, the device will be confiscated and a parent will be contacted. And I think that's in line if your phone is causing a distraction to the educational,
Yeah.
That policy.
Yeah.
I just don't want to set up two sets of rules for students if one student is compliant and the other is like, no, thank you.
yeah, and then because I think it goes back to the nature, your sentence on the other page, the level of the suspicion. I mean, if you said something nasty about student A,
Yeah.
and you're not showing me, but if you're making a threat against, that, and they're refusing to show you, at some point, if it's a significant threat, you're going to get SRO involved, and then then it goes into a different lane, right?
I would like, again, an attorney to weigh in on what students' rights are, because I don't want us to be bringing in a heavy to threaten students.
Yeah.
Because, and I get, from my perspective, if it's life-threatening event, that's a totally different category. But people can plead the fifth, like, I don't have to incriminate myself. I would like to get a legal opinion to make sure we're protecting ourselves, we're protecting students and families. And as we watch, so we're gonna put a pin in this and then hold over the rule just in case we need to pull something. But
I like,
yes,
I'm sorry.
please.
I like the way we just got through saying it, because then there's no need for legal to even be involved.
A request.
I'm not comfortable with
Request can be made.
Yep.
A request can be made. We contact the parent, and we go from there. I mean, no one is violating anything.
But here's the thing that made me uncomfortable, and I'm not saying you said anything wrong, Ms. Beavers.
No, you're fine.
But you said we might bring in an SRO, and then it takes it to another level.
I guess it just depends there's so many different reasons why we would search a student's phone.
I believe that.
But even then, I'm sorry, this is great.
You're
discussion.
fine.
Even then, the student doesn't have to give the SRO the information. We can still.
But here's my perspective.
You're right.
I think it's a different level of intimidation. If my friendly neighborhood principal is making a request, I may or may not comply, than if the SRO/law enforcement person is making a request. The student may feel pressured to do something that they don't necessarily have to do. And I don't want to put a student in a position where they feel intimidated outside of a life-threatening situation. I'm not comfortable with that.
But in those cases, we would already have, if that was the situation that Missy just mentioned, we would already contacted the parent and say, hey, we got some situations going on. Before we even bring the SRO in the room with your baby.
But what parent backs kids and says, no, you're not looking at my kid's stuff.
That's a reasonable.
So does it stop there, or do you bring in the SRO?
No, it stops.
It stops because we can't make anybody, hear me out.
Yep.
We can't make anybody give me, I can't tie you.
I hear that, but people don't know that. And I don't want people's ignorance to be used against them. That feels icky to me. Like, oh, you complied to this because you did. Okay, so fun example is gonna be really quick. Here we go. I was at Burlington years ago, and there were these two lovely women in front of me in line. And one woman goes and they ask for her phone number, so she gives it. And then the other lady goes and they ask for her phone number and she says, no, thank you. And the first lady says to the second lady, I didn't know you could do that. And the second lady says to the first lady, it's your phone number. But and these are children whose brains aren't fully formed. I would feel more comfortable with a legal opinion to make sure we are protecting ourselves, we're protecting our students. And if it's a life-threatening situation, like here are the non-negotiables. Board Member Schneider, what do you think?
I think the wording that we discussed would handle this paragraph appropriately, but it never hurts to make sure we have a legal opinion.
Okay, and just for the record, I'm not for running to legal and running up that bill. However, if it takes legal to make sure we get it right, I'm definitely in favor of that. So if we move to number 4, and again, we're just completing the conversation on this, we are gonna put a pin in it and bring it back next month. Search of motor vehicles. Okay, so as a parent, the first thing that jumped in my mind is that is not, in most cases, that is not your car, that's my car. So how can a child give consent to search a car that's not theirs? Unless in the parking permit, is there a waiver? Like if my child is driving my car and they get a parking permit to do so, is there a waiver that says you agree that your car can be searched for these reasons? Does that happen?
Well, what this reads is that you're parked on our property and there's searches of outlet, there's routine searches of the parking lot.
But this talks about the interior of the vehicle as well.
If we have suspicion,
Exteriors of.
the suspicions of exteriors, I'm sorry.
So it says school officials, so that would change to school administrators, and I would say or designee because it might be the SRO. I don't know principals that have time to do canvasses of the parking lot. So we may want to change that to school administrators or designees may search the interior of a student's motor vehicle based on reasonable suspicion.
Right.
I can't give someone consent to search Greg's house. So I don't know how a student like that
Yeah.
in my household when Sean started. That's not your car. That's my car.
If
I don't-
it's reasonable suspicion, no, I understand
Yep.
what you're saying. But if it's a reasonable suspicion that we need to check this car based off of what we think is reasonable, like
Yep.
maybe I hate to say it, maybe a weapon, maybe some different contraband. Maybe we found out you bringing something to school that you shouldn't be bringing. That's reasonable suspicion. It's no different than if we saw somebody on our property with a bulge that had a handle on it and looked like a possible weapon.
Yeah.
That's reasonable suspicion. So we would search that situation.
See, I see it a little bit differently. And again, if somebody's life is in danger, that's a whole different category for me. But absent that, I think that's more akin to the phone. Like my child is using my phone. I just allow him to use it. So if they're not given permission to search, you can't mandate the search. My child can't give you permission to search my vehicle.
I think in this
Yeah.
situation right here with the vehicle space, that's one I definitely would probably want to double back and ask.
Yeah. I
'Cause
think.
I think I've
Sorry.
never not. This has always been in policies that I've read about searches of motor vehicles.
Yeah.
Especially when, let's say, we do like canine searches or whatnot. Let's say it's a hit on the car. We'll call
Yep.
people out. Hey, we got to check this car because the dog stopped. Let's give you an example, and
Yep.
we know something is possibly here. So I've always seen this like is written on.
But that doesn't mean it's right. I'm not saying it's
I get
wrong.
it. I'm not.
But just because it has occurred in a lot of places doesn't mean it's right. And since legal is reviewing the policy, I want them to give an opinion on this section as well. Because
Yeah, that's fine.
unless when we get the permit, there's a waiver. And maybe legal will instruct us to put that in. Because the car shouldn't be on our property without a permit.
Yeah. I do think that the last sentence is out of order because it's the first 2 sentences are talking about the patrol of the lot.
Yep.
And then I think that school officials should be the actual last sentence. It should say such patrols and inspections may be conducted without notice, without student consent, and without search warrant. That's a patrol of the lot. Period. And then I think school officials may search the interior of a student's motor vehicle based on reasonable suspicion should be the last sentence, which we need further.
Because it's the lot, and then the interior.
Yes, it's a patrol of the
Yep.
lot. It's a search of the vehicle.
I agree.
So I feel like that sentence, even though we're getting it reviewed,
Yep.
I still think it would read better if,
Greg, you're saying, yeah. Ms. Shope, could we go ahead and reorder that so when legal gets it, it's
That
in
makes
order the
sense.
way we want? Thank you.
Yeah.
In B, the last sentence, the searches must be conducted in accordance with standardized procedures established by the superintendent or designee.
wait, where are we now?
Do those standard procedures exist somewhere? And if yes, is that cross-referenced, or can we get that cross-referenced?
I'm lost as to where you are.
No problem. B, suspicion, oh, and I wrote over it, suspicionless general searches.
Oh, right here.
So, yeah, that last sentence, the search must be conducted in accordance with standardized procedures established by the superintendent or designee. My question is, what are those procedures? And if that's a separate document, if we could cross-reference that.
Let me just, yeah.
Yeah, just so if people have the full spectrum. And then that next paragraph, the second sentence, it says school officials. If we could change that to school administrators for consistency. And then I think we can omit that last search to just get everyone caught up. It's talking about canine searches and how students, they can only search inanimate objects. They're not going to be sniffing people,
Right.
et cetera. So if dogs are brought in to search a classroom, it says that no student should be present during the dog search. Before a search occurs in a classroom, students will be first removed to a location outside of the classroom. If students aren't present, I don't think that we need to have that last sentence that before
Right.
the dog, they're going to, because that's,
Repetitive?
yes. Is anyone opposed to that?
No.
All right, so I think we have the policy in pretty good shape where it's ready to get a legal opinion on that with all the notes and the questions we have. So we are going to put on hold policy 442, student involvement in decision-making, so Dr. Garrison can confer with Ms. Peltz. 445 and 445 Rule 1, if we can get a legal opinion on that, and then the same for 446 and 446.1, and then those will come back for our May meeting. All right. Look at us. All right, so that brings us to our next meeting date, which will be Wednesday, May 1st. Isn't that May Day? All right, we should have a treat or something for May Day at 5:30, and that brings us to 3B adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone.